Hi there, this is Lisa Wilcox listening to Rocktober on Rock Video Rental.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to Rock Video Rental. I am Brandon, and with me, as always, is Caleb, and we're continuing on with Rocktober and talking about the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Today, we are talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. It is from 1989 and is directed by Stephen Hopkins. The plot, we get the pregnant Alice finds Freddy Krueger striking through the sleep mind of her unborn child, hoping to be reborn in the real world.
Whoa,
The
way to
cast,
ruin what the heck? That's like if somebody hadn't seen that movie, way to ruin the plot.
exactly. Spoiler alert.
Jeez.
Uh, Actually, not a bad one to spoil.
No, I guess not.
Saving you, basically. The cast, we get Robert Englund as Freddy again. Lisa Wilcox returns as Alice. Kelly Jo Minter as Yvonne. Danny Hassel as Dan. Erica Anderson as Greta, and Joe Seeley as Mark. Um,
Oh, hi, Mark.
hi, Mark. I would have much rather seen Tommy Wiseau in this.
Oh
It
man.
would have been more interesting. This is probably my least watched entry in the entire series.
Oh, why is that?
Um, ex except for the remake, but I keep hinting at that. But you just wait till we get to that remake. I got a lot of things to say about that. Um, I had this, I had it on DVD. I still have it on DVD. I don't know. But the first time I saw it was on DVD and I fell asleep during it, the first time I watched it. Then the next night, I'm like, okay, I got to start it over because I don't remember too much of what happened. I started again. I fell asleep for a second time. That really tells you all you need to know because I fell asleep watching a movie about a serial killer who kills people in their sleep twice. Yeah, not a very solid entry in the series. There are some positive things with it. There's plenty of negative, and man, I guess we just get right into that. Things that I thought were good. I like Lisa Wilcox. I thought she did pretty good in this one as well. I thought her acting improved quite a bit from part four, which is
Mm,
impressive because it only came a year after this,
okay.
or this one only came a year
Yeah.
after that one.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yep.
yeah, and I thought she was more confident in the role, I guess. Felt a little more natural in it, and maybe it was just a progression of her character. I don't know, but I thought she was pretty solid.
Yeah. No, I'm down with that. I'm good with that.
And then the special effects, I thought some of those are pretty decent. Um, and then I thought some were dated.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Yvonne is on a um, oh my gosh, a diving board, and there's
Mm,
like that weird stop motion thing that comes out at her. That thought that looked pretty clunky.
yeah.
But some of the special effects in the death scenes, which I'll get to later, I thought were pretty decent.
Yeah, I think it kind of panned out because there were some of the effects that were really good and then some that were fine, good, passable, and then there were, like you said, some were that were dated that just didn't have carry as much weight. So I agree that probably listing it as good compared to where some of the other movies that we've said that, the special effects were great overall.
Yeah.
So um I don't have a lot for good and or great, but one part that I did have just, and I'm gonna mention it just because it was at the beginning, was that the intro, there's not too many of these movies that have really, well, none of them scare me, but like the jump scares,
Yeah.
Surprise me. There you go. That's a better way. There's not many of them that surprise me, throw something at me where it like, catches me off guard, or I actually like kind of jump a little bit at because I wasn't expecting it. But this one may have had one of the best ones so far, where at the beginning, when she has the dream and she wakes up, but she didn't really wake up. Like she woke up twice, kind of a thing. Like she woke up
Yeah.
out of a dream into a dream, and you don't realize that at first. And like a split second later, they do a jump scare, and I was like, ah, dang it, I wasn't like they totally got me with it. So it was pretty. That I had to give them credit for, because while there are a lot of great things with these movies, all the jump scares, just because, especially like they're older, you kind of know what you're looking for. They don't get me as much, but I had to give them credit for catching me on that one. So,
Rock.
um,
I will say there is one thing in this that I would consider great. And again, it's Robert Englund. He's
mhm.
playing right into it.
Yeah,
He goes for it. He gives his best every single time. Maybe the stuff he has to work with isn't as good. He does get to say bitch a couple times, so there's that. there's always that. Um, Memorable scenes.
I
We'll,
had the
we'll do
labyrinth.
those, and then we'll talk about
Bad.
the small amount of deaths.
Oh, the
But
death. Yeah.
but
The only
yeah,
memorable scene I really well, I mean, I guess there's more, but like in more of a positive way. I felt like one of the more well put together scenes was the labyrinth kind of thing that they were doing.
yeah,
Creative, not stellar, amazing. It's under memorable scenes just because, um, you know, I thought they did a good job with it, and that was one of the scenes that stuck with me after the movie. So,
yeah. This movie tries to like lean a little bit more into like a dark gothic kind of feel,
mhm,
and I like the change of direction. There's so many things clunky in this movie that I feel like weren't handled very well.
yeah,
And man, some of the scenes in this, you talked about the labyrinth thing. There was like that whole MC Escher thing.
yeah, that was
Um,
kind of part over around there.
yeah, and well, we got two people that took quite a bit of fine art classes here. MC Escher was the dude that painted like all the stairs that kind of lead to nowhere.
Yeah, the upside
Um,
down, and
yeah, that was kind of interesting and kind of disorienting. So that was a cool change on stuff. And I appreciated that.
yeah, and part of the thing too that I want to reinforce that with is just like, and not. I know this is so many years after this movie came out, but they really haven't done a lot with that in the aspect of, because they most of the time they take the green dreams into dark, scary, twisted, and that little part they s- I don't know, I wouldn't even call it really like an artistic take on it, but just it's just you don't have to get dark, weird, and twisted with it. Just like get creative with it, essentially.
yeah,
Where, like you're controlling the dream. Like do this stuff where like it's a doorway that leads to nowhere. Things turn things upside down. They've done a little bit of that here or there. Like, was it this one or was it the previous one where they were walking on the ceiling? I think it was this one, they were walking on the ceiling. Um, but yeah, just little things like that where it's just like you don't have to make it so outrageous. You could make real things just unorthodox and unusual. It makes me think of like Inception, where they kind of did some of those things where like they fold the world on top of itself and they do some of that cool stuff there.
yeah,
And I did, since there's so little that we're going to be able to talk about that I did appreciate and enjoy with this movie. I do feel like emphasizing that, where it's just like, I thought that was cool, and I kind of wish they did more of that.
yeah. I would agree with that. Um, some of the dream world that it creates is interesting.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the movie as a whole, Man, it's just kind of dull. Um, I guess towards the end, we get the ending where she's sitting there with her baby and her dad and her friend, and it's like, oh, happy ending. But all of a sudden they zoom out and there's like the little girls doing jump rope, singing the Freddy nursery rhyme thing. And
Hmm.
that was like a nice way to end it and leave it open at the end. But
Yeah.
I could have done it without the constant whoosh, whoosh, whoosh of the jump rope. Like that was a little distracting.
Yeah.
Like, did we even really need that? We just needed the girls singing.
Hmm.
And then maybe things that were memorable for being bad. The little boy Jacob,
Hmm.
who was like Alice's son, he's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he was in that movie Mikey that I talked about on the was we're recording these in September. So if you go back in September, um, in August and listen to an episode, I talked about this horror movie I watched called Mikey. Um, this little boy was in it. He played like the neighbor of Mikey.
Okay.
And like it took me forever to figure out where I saw him before. I'm like, oh yeah, he's Alice's son on Nightmare on Elm Street 5. But like those super bright, huge blue eyes.
Hmm.
He's just kind of creepy looking. But he's a child actor. And at the end where he's acting like Freddy, ugh, it just made me
Yeah.
groan.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, there's so much with this. So let's keep going.
Yeah. I guess I get to the death scenes because there's only three of them.
Wait, really?
Yeah, dude. There's three. We get Dan. He dies pretty early on. He gets one of the weirdest death scenes ever, where
Yeah.
like he's in a truck, but Freddy takes it over and he turns it into a motorcycle and then
Or well, no,
fuses
he
Dan.
crashes and then he jumps on a motorcycle.
Okay, but he becomes like one with the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like Freddy's shooting off all these crazy one-liners, and I'll get to that later. And then the next one we get Greta, who's kind of like this girl that her parents are like obsessed with her being perfect and wanting her to be a model and everything. She chokes to death because Freddy like force feeds her.
Hmm.
That one's gross.
Oh yeah.
The effects on that were pretty good though. Pretty good at grossing me out. Well, even the effects on the Dan one were pretty good, even though it was completely absurd.
Yeah, no, the effects, I feel like the effects on the Dan one were some of the best in this movie. Yeah, but I totally agree with you. Like they were absurd, but that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of what I come to expect with Freddy Krueger, where it's just like they're going for absurd with
Yeah,
most everything.
right. It's kind of evolved into that.
Hmm.
Um, then the last one was Mark, the comic book guy,
Man,
where
that's
he get dives
crazy.
into a comic book like he's in the music video for Take On Me.
Yeah, but I was thinking that too.
I wish somebody would like recut that and put Take On Me in it, so just have Freddie and that Mark guy.
Oh my gosh, we should totally do that. Take
Take on me,
on
bitch.
me.
And that's when we get Super Freddy,
Oh my
which
gosh.
is
Oh
ridiculous. Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
That was super stupid.
Yeah. But the effects again were pretty good for the time.
Yeah.
I got a little bit more about that because I've been watching the Never Sleep Again 5-6 hour documentary thing about the series. So got some info from that as well as my IMDb facts and trivia. But yeah, only three deaths in this. It's kind of surprising.
Yeah. And that's it.
Uh,
Movie over. Done with the episode. Thanks for coming
yeah.
out, everybody.
Thanks for coming. Next is
Don't forget to spray and neuter your pets.
rest in peace, Bob Barker, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, so things that are bad. Freddy's constant quips.
Yeah.
Freddy is a complete and utter joker in this. It's like nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
It just keeps going. Um, some of the stuff he says makes absolutely no sense. Um, in Dan's death scene, where he's just like fuel injection, fast lane, power drive. Like
Oh man.
you're just shouting out things that have to do with cars.
Exhaust, acceleration, brake.
Distributor cap, wiper
Oil,
fluid.
oil change.
Oh gosh.
I wouldn't be surprised if he
Um,
said some of that stuff and they just cut it out.
right? They're like, Robert, just go out there, name off random things to do with cars, and we'll get a couple good ones throw in there. And he's like, okay. um, wiper blade replacement, brake job. Oh gosh. The pace,
WD-40.
like, we're not sponsored by that. We can't use that, Robert. uh, the pacing of this movie is garbage.
Oh yeah. It
Oh,
moves so freaking fast, and then all of a sudden it was like hit the brakes, and it was, yeah.
I
All over
forgot
the
that
place.
Yvonne survived.
Oh, okay.
She's a black girl in a slasher movie that survives.
Oh, I didn't think about it
So
that way.
there's
Yeah.
that. I thought I remember her dying, but this time watching, I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh, you made it. Good
Um,
job.
Speaking of Yvonne, she can't scream. That girl cannot scream.
I did not notice that
Her
detail.
scream sounded horrible. Like they should have just dubbed it over like they did with the girl in Halloween Resurrection. It was that bad.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm not going to go back and watch this movie to find out. So I do not care.
Oh
I do
man.
not.
And I said too that so many people like the hate on Freddy's Dead, the next movie. They're like, oh, it's terrible and it's so not serious and it's like the worst one in the series. I'm like, when's the last time you watched this one? Because at least Freddy's Dead isn't boring.
um,
But we'll talk more about that one next time. Um, and we talked about how Mark's death scene where he turns into a superhero and
um,
Freddy turns into Super Freddy. That's just so, as the kids would say, cringe.
yeah. Yeah. No, I like it. I thought he was going to survive because he was the first one to be like, oh, I'm going to take control of my own dream.
Yeah, he's basically a dream warrior.
Right. But then he did nothing. Like it accomplished nothing.
Yeah,
And so that was lame and disappointing.
he basically turns into a ripoff of the Punisher
Yeah.
and
I, I
sucks.
I would have probably rather had it where he survived and then Yvonne died and he was the one to go release Amanda or whatever her name was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that probably would have been better.
Cuz yeah, that was I mean, I know Yvonne kind of survived too, but it was really because of Alice. But I feel like it would have been more interesting and entertaining for someone else to have been able to survive. Because that's another thing. Because yeah, that's the last death, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
The other thing that I had down in my notes that I really wanted to mention, and I know you kind of say I always take these perspectives and everything, but we know there are inconsistencies, but at this point, they're basically making it like Freddy Krueger can make you fall asleep.
yeah.
Like Dan apparently seeming like for no reason whatsoever fell asleep in the truck. Like there was no logical explanation for him to fall asleep when he was in the truck. And then uh Yvonne in a hot tub under the water. I don't really know how that happens. But the main one that really got to me was it was Greta, right? The model one,
Yeah.
where she's sitting at the table and she basically just nods her head and it's just like, oh, she's asleep. Totally like Freddy's right there. Freddy's ready to go and like game over. Like all she
Yeah,
had
I
to
wish I
do
could
not.
fall asleep that easily.
Yeah, I was like, what the freaking like no, that one bugged me the most right there, where it's just like I don't know. I mean, again, I know there's inconsistencies, but this one was just like, I don't know. Of course,
Yeah.
that's not my biggest issue, but we'll eventually get to that, I'm sure. So
The last thing I had is that so Jacob is Alice and Dan's son, and he looks like neither one of them. Kid's got jet black hair
yeah,
and like massive eyes and
yes.
like a round face. I mean, Alice has kind of big eyes, but I,
I
I,
like that.
I don't get it.
No,
The kid
that's
looks like an
fair.
anime character.
Hmm.
Like I don't know where this kid came from, and that was the best I could do. Not to hate on him too much, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you had? I mean, I could talk about what's terrible about this forever, but I had to cut myself off.
Oh, dude, so much. Like, what's up with the music? Why it sounded like it sounded like circus music, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
why? Like, are you trying to make this movie not serious, not scary?
that's
Like,
prime time, bitch.
it's not about clowns. Like, this music is doing nothing for me. I don't know what the heck you're trying to do
They
with that,
basically turned Freddy into a clown.
right? Um, I was so about all the inconsistencies and stuff. Like, I was really kind of confused on why Alice was scared of him because she already defeated him once. So why didn't she just bust out a mirror and like do it again?
Yeah, it only works one time.
Apparently, everybody gets one. Um, but then the whole freaking Freddy alien baby thing.
Yeah,
Okay, all right. When that happened, I was so mad because let's go back to the original movie. Freddy Krueger was a normal human being man.
hmm
Like he had a job, he was doing things. He was somehow like um either grooming kids or um
he was a
like
child murderer.
yeah, but like he groomed them to like be able to like get that like I don't know if he just straight up kidnapped them, but like to the extent like when these kids saw them, it's not like they saw him and they ran away because he was some disfigured freak right away. He was became disfigured because people burned him.
hmm
And so why the heck was this demon gargoyle baby the thing that was given birth to? Like that makes no sense whatsoever. Like he was a normal baby. He grew up to be a quote unquote normal man who became a terrible person.
I think
But
they're trying to say is they're like the monster Freddy is trying to make his way into the real world, and the way he can is by taking over Alice's child. So,
no.
like, what's being born is not the child murderer Freddy, it's the supernatural being of Freddy.
Okay,
It's
yes,
still dumb.
I see that, but then the baby monster Freddy goes to Freddy's clothes, which has no body,
Yeah,
and he like morphos metamorphosis
he
morphs
inflates.
whatever. Yeah, he inflates back into Freddy. And again, I'm going to say I get pissed again because in the other movie, a dog has to just pee on his grave and he come in a dream. In a dream, a dog pees on his grave and Freddy's back. And then in this one, all it takes is a dream and Freddy's just like, "Hey, I'm going to find my way out of here and I'm going to resurrect myself." It's just like there you can't I, I'm sorry with these kind of movies, you have to put like some kind of something on there of consistency or limitation or something where that just it, it just doesn't make sense. And I was so mad and frustrated where it was just like, well, how there is no consistent way on how he comes back. and there's no way to keep him. So I'm very interested in what they're going to do with the next one, considering the title. But I was totally pissed with this movie, and like that also set up on how I felt about it from just like all the bad stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I told you when we started this series that the rules get looser and looser and looser, and it gets farther from the original with each entry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going through here through my notes, and I'm just gonna throw stuff at you. So another thing that made me mad was that her friends don't believe her. And it's just
Yeah.
like, and they never well, okay, I think they talk about it a little bit, but they never stop to think about how all her friends died.
Yeah.
Like, oh hey, yeah,
Didn't
you
they
like
give her the benefit of the doubt? Like, okay, so you had a whole group of friends before and a brother, and they're all gone.
yeah.
And like, this seems like they would have known because Dan was still there for a little bit.
Yeah, now I could kind of understand that maybe Dan didn't want to, because they showed that Dan did not want to tell them about some of the details because they wanted to keep Freddy a secret and leave him die. Okay, I kind of get that. But also at the same time, it's just like there should have been enough information for her new friends to know that her old friends had been killed. And frankly, at this point, if her boyfriend died, I would have been like, yo, are you going around and killing people? Because everybody around you dies.
She's an angel of death.
Right? Like nobody brought that up, which would have been kind of like an interesting thing, more interesting than just everybody playing up, thinking she's crazy, because it's like, dude, other people died. Like years ago, other people died, and now people are dying now, and you don't give this girl any kind of credit.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks she's crazy. So I thought that
Always.
was, yeah. Totally thought it was ridiculous about how Freddy was trying to make her baby his baby, essentially. Like he
Yeah.
started feeding it souls. Like what? Like, brr. I don't even know what to do with that in my mind. It just super confusing. Like why did he need the baby? Like the whole premise of the whole thing like wasn't making sense. Like he already came back. He came back in the dream world
Mm-hmm.
somehow. And then I don't know why he was trying to uh, um kidnap her baby, take over her baby, take hostage her baby or whatever, because there was no motivation for that in the past. Now granted, like none of the people in the past had been pregnant, but it's just like, why is that such a priority for him?
Yeah. I
So
don't know. He's trying to make his way into the real world through the dreams of a fetus. I don't know. I don't get it.
yeah.
Oh,
Also, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say also, all of a sudden her dad is not an alcoholic anymore.
Right.
Not an abusive alcoholic anymore.
And that is not as bad as so many other details, because hey, there's AA, and people can get better. But yeah, that was not as bad as a lot of other things. So Amanda, the Freddy's mom,
Mm-hmm.
again, first of all, pretty ridiculous on the whole thing on how they basically said that she got pregnant. Like she apparently, a woman by herself, was down with all these guys in the asylum by herself, and then the two guys that were counting and overlooking were just like, oh, was there anybody else in here? No, let's just go.
Yeah.
Like how do you forget that, and how do you let a woman down there by herself? Like weird context, totally didn't make sense. But she wanted to help. She did stuff last time to try to put, well, not last time, but the other movie, to try to put Freddy away, and she did. But now all of a sudden, like the rules have changed, and she needs to help again. She didn't really get buried, and so you have to like put her soul to rest, and you put her soul to rest by just touching her body.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
where did they think now the general concept of like, okay, put her soul to rest and then she can, move on and like help find closure, put Freddy away, and then like her soul can be at peace. Okay, that can make sense, but the fact that you quite practically literally set up no prerequisites for this, like there's no like, oh, sprinkle holy water, oh, like bury her bones, oh, something something. No, it's just like, just touch the body, that's good, we're good, that'll put her soul to rest.
Tag, you're it,
Yeah.
basically.
So dumb.
Wah, wah. Anything else you want me to share trivia and facts?
I think that's it. I mean, there's more, but I think that's most of it. Yeah,
Mostly.
mostly. Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. So this is the second and last time the character Amanda Kruger appears in the film series. Her first appearance was Dream Warriors, and she was played by Nan Martin. This time she was played by Beatrice Bupple?
Okay.
Beppel? Bipple? I don't know. So according to the director, Stephen Hopkins, they got lots of tarantulas, hand painted them green and red, and on the floor of the stage are placed a little wall up in the shape of an arm, um, and had trainers come in and around the tarantulas. The plan was simply to drop the wall, and the film resulting in scattering the spiders everywhere. However, uh, they got the shot. They were left with a studio full of around 200 angry tarantulas.
What?
Hopkins figures we probably carried on shooting on another set. I'm sure. I don't think we ever found them again.
What?
Yeah, as far as the director knows, those spiders roamed freely through the studio and escaped into the free world. Or maybe it was just someone else's job to ensure the tarantulas were all accounted for.
Oh my
So, like,
gosh.
way to plan that out.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, Stephen King and comic book writer Frank Miller were offered the job of writing and directing this movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Stephen Hopkins, the director, was given just 4 weeks to shoot and a further 4 weeks to edit this movie.
What? Are you kidding
This
me?
meant that he had to shoot on one stage while the crew dressed on the other so they could shoot almost continually. After he made it in the studio, after he made it, the studio was so impressed that he was given the task of directing Predator 2, which is strange considering the movie was released by New Line and Predator 2 was released by 20th Century Fox.
Oh.
So the executive producer, Sarah Rishner, or Risher, I mean, her original pitch to New Line for Dream Warriors was for Freddy to have a baby. Um, she stated that I went in, one of the executives was pregnant at the time, and I said, picture Freddy clawing his way out of the womb. No one liked the idea. So then I got a call for Nightmare 5. And they came to her and said, remember when you wanted Freddy to have a baby? Well, we like that idea now. But what if Alice was the mom?
Okay.
Yeah. So Lisa Wilcox's name appears in the opening credits, but not in the end credits.
Oh, whoops.
Interesting. Um, so if you are a Nightmare on Elm Street fan looking at the poster in 88 and 89, you're probably curious of what the heck a dream child meant and what was going on with the fetus inside of a crystal ball in Freddy's gloves. Um, Well, the people making the film thought the same thing too. The poster came out before they actually had a clear idea of what was going to happen in the movie.
Mhm.
So yeah. So Freddy says bitch twice in this movie,
Okay.
which is a short amount for Freddy. Um, all the death sequences were cut down significantly in order to avoid an X rating. Dan's motorcycle death was longer and contained
Longer? Dude,
much more gore.
wasn't that the longest one?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Jeez.
Many sequences showing Dan's face racked in pain were cut, along with his screams and Freddy's laughter. Scenes in which are seen on screen for only a few seconds are several minutes long on the film. The entire sequence was much longer, and the timing of Freddy's quips are different. We got Greta's dinner scene was also edited. Originally, Freddy filleted the Greta doll with a claw glove, causing it to spurt blood everywhere, and then force fed her its innards. Shots of the guests laughing were cut. Also, Freddy said, "You are what you eat." She looked down and realized he had gutted her and was feeding her from her own stomach, which is kind of gross.
Yeah.
This explains what the Greta doll in Mark's dream was bleeding from its torso.
Mm.
Finally, Mark was also cut as Freddy shreds the paper in an unrated release. His face is animated and it shows him screaming along with his cries of pain. Freddy cuts the paper head off. All scenes can be viewed unedited in the original unrated VHS release.
Okay.
There was a nude body double that stood in for Lisa Wilcox during the scene where Alice's dream morphs into a nightmare. So it wasn't actually her.
The shower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then the sex scene at the beginning of it wasn't Dan, it was the dude that played Super Freddy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the comic book death scene, the room was actually painted black and white. And it was not just like color film with a color taken out of it.
Okay.
And the character Mark, like all of his colors and stuff that he wore were like super bright. And then they like chroma keyed it down to make the room even like paler.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
kind of interesting how they did that. And the last thing I got is this movie cost 6 million and it made 22 in the box office. So diminishing returns. Because if you guys remember, Elm Street 4 was the most profitable, I believe, made the most money. So yeah, big dive here in
Ooh,
5.
yeah.
But grades, IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, what are they?
IMDb 4.5.
5.0.
What? Get out of here.
Get right out of town.
Rotten Tomato critic 35.
30.
Okay. Audience 35.
31.
Uh wah.
Yeah. You want to go first?
Um yeah. So dang man. All right. So this was bad.
Yeah.
I still don't know what else is to come. I'm trying to think in retrospect. I think a good comparison would be the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, those were bad. How does this chalk up compared to that? Both of them were like super messed up with the stories. Had ridiculous things that didn't work. This one I felt had more of an entertainment factor to it, but like just so many question marks, so many things that just like were not working. It just this was tough.
It pooped the bed.
It pooped a bit. I don't think it's awful. I think there's a decent comparison because we just recently talked about a movie that we did watch that was just like I have no interest in rewatching it ever again. This has some rewatchability to it. Man, so I am stuck between two grades, and mainly it's because like I don't know if things are going to get horribly worse from here. Um, I think, man, and they brought Freddy back again. I think I'm gonna land at a 1.5.
Okay,
I,
that's
I was
fair.
I was between a 1 and a 1.5. Like definitely was not gonna hit a 2. Definitely there was nothing good enough in this that I felt like I could push it up to 2 to get it close to like average. Is just like this is clearly not a good movie in my opinion. Individually or looking at as an individual movie or looking at from the entire series. So I think yeah, I feel pretty good about 1.5.
Rock. Well, I have seen the whole series multiple times. Um, do I think this one's the worst? No, it is definitely one of the worst. I think what this one really has going against it is that it's just kind of boring. Um, it's paced really slow. It feels, I don't, the pacing's weird because like parts of it feel slow, parts of it feel crazy sped up, and it's probably because it was cut up so much. Um, the Dan's death scene really need to be the full length? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Um, it was long as it was, but it does have some things going for it. Like Robert Englund's good in it. Alice is a good character, and Lisa Wilcox plays her pretty well, better in this one than she did in the previous. Um, I don't like how they killed Dan off so fast.
Hmm.
It's just like in part four where they killed off the rest of the Dream Warriors super fast.
Yes, great comparison.
Um, I don't know. This is like one of my least favorite in the series. I end up giving it a 2 because I do think the special effects are pretty decent. I know that this probably what I would consider the worst is coming up before too long, so I needed some wiggle room. But yeah, I think a 2 is pretty solid for me.
How dare you? How dare you give this movie
Where
that
do you
much
get
credit?
off? It's definitely better than Caddyshack 2, which is the other movie you were talking about.
Yes, we can just go ahead and
At the
reference that.
time of recording this, that was what we watched. I watched it in the same day as this, so it was a really fun day for me.
That was poop.
Um,
Poop mouth.
and I will say so far, I've watched every one of these Nightmare on Elm Street movies in a form of physical media. I watched this one on VHS, and the VHS copy I can't remember if I bought it off Mercari or eBay, but whoever had it must have been a smoker because the slip cover for this smells like ancient cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like I took a whiff of it and I felt like I got emphysema just from the smell of it. It's so bad. But it even played through my VCR. I could smell it. But yeah. The next one is usually one people consider to be one of the worst, but it was one of the earlier ones I saw. So maybe it just has a soft spot in my heart, but we'll have to see in another rewatch because it has been a little while since I watched it. And it took only 6 entries for Freddy to make his way into the 3D realm,
Dun, dun, dun.
the short 3D renaissance, and even that one was kind of late into it. If you consider, Friday the 13th, Part 3, Jaws 3D, Amityville 3D were all in 3D,
Hmm.
and that was in the early 80s. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, but we all know now in retrospect that it's not the final one,
Yep.
but
It's
they
never
always like to do
over.
that in slasher movies. But yeah, if you guys are liking the show, please like, subscribe, and share. We are on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we are on YouTube, and we are on TikTok. Look us up on there, search for Rock Video Rental. You'll find us. Come by next time. We'll be talking about Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. But until then, as always, be kind and rewind.